Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. We'll just wait till everybody gets in. Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. It's the last of our Embercombe online lockdown sessions for this month. We are coming back in September with more offerings, more talks and more workshops. So we thought that we would like to just end this liminal phase that we've been in with a ceremony, really to mark the end of liminality, or the beginning of liminality, or the middle of it, depending on where we are. But tonight will be a 2-hour session, and I'm sure a lot of you will have read about it, so I don't need to give you any detail here. But I just wanted to come in and introduce Jason, who will be taking the ceremony tonight. We've been really loving the writing that he's been doing during this lockdown time. He's local to us here in Devon. We hope that he'll be coming to teach at Embercombe sometime next year. And really, that's all I wanted to say before handing over to him. So the shape of tonight will be in his hands, but he'll start by doing some talking, tell you some stories. And he will be opening to questions at any point, just to make sure that everybody's clear on what's happening. We will be doing, there are 2 ways to do that. And I'm terrible at this as well, but just to tell you how I understand this will happen. If you go into participants, there is a raise hand button in there for you to raise your hand. If that's not working for you, we have the lovely Cindy and Nusha working on the chat box. So write it in the chat and they'll be able to ask it for you of Jason. So I don't want to take up any more time. Have a lovely evening, everybody, and I will hand over to you, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, it's Jason here. Good to see everyone as far as I can see them. Can you all hear me okay? Can you hear okay? Yeah, good. That's good. Excellent. So I'm here in Devon as well, also in Devon, the other side of Devon to Embercombe. And this is a little ceremony for really listening in at this time of pandemic, climate crisis, and also in the US as a kind of uprising happening and protests for Black Lives Matter and things like that. So all these incredible liminal events are happening, some seemingly catastrophic. But how can we, in some way listen into that place and find some kind of place where we might be able to direct things a little bit in a way that might work out for human beings and for the more than human world, animals, plants, myth beings, rocks, and all the rest. How is that might be possible? So this ceremony is to connect with the other world, the fairy world, sometimes called Annwyn or Annwyn, many other names. That's the Welsh name, which is sometimes I've heard it pronounced different ways, so I say it a couple of different ways. Also, it's evoking the need fire. Need fire is a ritual that's found in Scottish traditions, in Celtic traditions, in Slavic and Germanic traditions as well. And it's a fire that was lit. Traditionally, it was lit. There's various different versions of it, but it was traditionally lit at the time when there's a plague. It was lit with a bow drill. Like sometimes a big bow drill with 2 people pulling on it by friction. Yeah, and it's a ritual to lift plagues. And it also has another aspect to it, which is really listening in to fate itself. Fate itself is often personified, in many mythical traditions as a being which, in some way, oversees fate. Like fate can happen in a certain way. You're running a race, and at some point, one person wins the race. There's a war. At some point, somebody wins the war. There's a political battle. Sometime someone comes out on top. Someone's dying, and at some point they die. Somebody's being, their soul is being reborn. At some point, they're reborn as a different person. At one epoch of history changes into another. At all these moments, something happens to shift fate. And these kind of beings, goddess type beings, like Hela or Mother Holder or Hecate, oversee this process of fate in some way. They oversee that moment where things change and the impossible can happen. Yeah, it's a bit like two wrestlers grappling at some point, or two people doing Tai Chi, as a martial art. At some point, one of them will listen into the other and be able to throw the other. It's a bit like that. So can we somehow change the skein of fate? All these little patterns that make up fate. Fate is made of all the different myth beings and animals and plants and us human beings and our relationship. Can we somehow listen into that, change the skein of fate, change the nature of fate, some way that works out a little bit, that we might like it a little bit that way? And it's not just for humans. So it's to consider the more than human world, animals, plants, myth beings. Will maybe we want to arrive at something better, like a better day, an abundant network of eco-communities. Imagine that we could create a regenerative culture with an abundant network of eco-communities connected by traveling caravans. We could maybe transform our culture into a more regenerative, earth-based culture. We could have communities where we're reskilling people and teaching them how to build stone walls and heal trauma and resolve conflicts and grow onions and connect with myth beings and magnificent stories of magnificent traditions of storytelling and conflict resolution and trauma healing and all these other things that we need. But how do we get there? It seems impossible and difficult, perhaps, or maybe it seems easy, I don't know. Depends on you. But how do we get there? My wager is we won't get there in the way that we are at the moment. We might get there though if we're altered. We won't get there just as humans. Just as humans, we might get there as changeling children. Something in us might need to go under, to die and to become something else. Maybe we need to get there as communities. Change happens when a few communities start working together as networks of communities. And all those networks of communities start working together with each other. And then a kind of an emergent wave of change can happen through a culture, an emergent wave of change that hasn't been seen before, that hasn't been seen or predicted before from our previous way of looking at things. It's completely new, it's completely different from what we might imagine. This emergent wave of change might happen. And that tends to happen when we go into some other space. We don't arrive as humans, but we arrive as communities, as assemblages of me, Jason, and my community, mutual aid networks, friendships, mutual empowerment, shared resources, and also in relationship with oak trees and fairies and strong brown rivers and all the beings which are around here, such as like bumblebees, apple trees, doves, gigantic sunflowers, like this one. This is a great sunflower. It's like about 11 foot tall. These kind of relationships, coming into relationships with all these beings is very important. And that's what we're going to do with this ceremony tonight. Bees. Here is a bee, little honey bee on the lavender. How do we come into relationship with such beings? Well, yeah, there's many stories which point to this. Many stories which can kind of help out perhaps with what's happening at this moment. At this moment, and perhaps one of them comes from dreams. Many myths emerge from dreams, and the reason that I'm doing this, the reason that I started making these ceremonies, these series of ceremonies, was because I had a dream in January. And in that time, I was on top of a mountain in Italy in the day, not in the dream, but in the waking life in the day. And it was a place that's called Fairy Mountain. That's what the locals call it. We found that the locals called it Fairy Mountain or Witch Mountain. So we went up to the top of this mountain. At the base of the mountain, there's a temple to Artemis. Artemis is seen in those places as being kind of fairy queen as well in those Italic traditions. And whilst I was up there, I made a ceremony a bit like this, and Artemis kind of appeared in this, to me in the ceremony and said that soon something is coming, something's coming, and the dead are going to be filling the sky. And yeah, and then I went down the mountain. Mist was falling down the mountain in rivers, and I came back, went to sleep that night, and I was having a dream. And in the dream, I was walking up Glastonbury Tor with some magicians, all wearing trench coats for some reason. And these magicians said to me, soon the human race is going to be reduced in number. And I found that kind of disturbing. And I said, well, is there anything I can do about it? And they said, yeah, you have to make a ceremony to wake up the goddess from the land. So then we were climbing up Glastonbury Tor in the dream. And then we made a ceremony there. And there was a tiny little dot on the ground, like a little flower, like a little speedwell flower. And it also looked a bit like a little 9-fold Celtic knot. And it split into 2, and then it split into 4, and then it split into 8, and then it kept doing that, multiplying itself exponentially until it became this enormous kind of glowing portal to the fairy world. And then the goddess walked out of the land in all her glory and magnificence. Yeah, that was that dream. And that dream reminds me of many, many other stories as well. It reminds me quite a lot of the story of from the Slavic traditions of Baba Yaga. In those traditions, Baba Yaga, there was a young version of Baba Yaga. Everybody thinks of Baba Yaga as being this kind of older being, maybe. But there was this young version of Baba Yaga who was in love with the horned god Veles. But the mother of Baba Yaga, you know, put this curse on her. She didn't approve of the match between Baba Yaga, young Baba Yaga, and the horn god Veles. And she put a curse on her and then poisoned her. And, but luckily, Veles had many lives, and he gave one of his lives for her to resurrect her. He went down into the underworld and then resurrected her. And in many, many traditions, we have this kind of story of someone going down into the land. Like Persephone going down into the land. Persephone is also accompanied by Hecate when, or Hecate, sometimes she's called, when she went down into the land. And then she's reborn again in the spring. And at this time of year particularly, it's the time where, you know, these beings in some sense have arisen from the land. Persephone, this young version of Baba Yaga, the fairy king and queen, they've arisen from the land, but also we're looking at a time where they might go down again. You know, later in the year, they're going to go down again. Now's the time of harvest. And later they're going to go down, but then they're going to rise up again. So part of this ceremony is about that. It's about that we're giving thanks for the harvest, thanks for the bounty of the goddess who's risen out of the land. And then later, we know she's going to go down again in winter and also rise again in the spring. So it's like there's this thread of eternal life which moves through bios life. The Greeks call it Zoe. Zoe is eternal life, and bios is the life that dies. But it's not eternal life like a, you know, like a Christian heaven or something like that. It's immanent in the land. It's something, an immanent, indestructible life that dies and rises again. So the grapevines die, you know, but then they rise again in the spring. All the different plants that we're growing are, I'm just laughing at the birds doing funny things, are dying, you know, later in the year, but then they rise again. We can see them now, lots of plants growing. Now they're rising up, later they'll die. And later in the spring, their seeds will come again. So it's like the seed of the goddess in the earth, sprouting again. Yeah, that's part of the background for it. Yeah, good. Now I can see some people. I just pressed the button. Okay, good. Yeah, and another story this reminds me of is a story. I've told this story several times, and so I think maybe some people on here will recognize this story because I keep telling this story, but I really like it. I'm going to tell it again. So if you've heard it before, I apologize, but it is a good story. I think you'll like it. It's a story of told by Martin Prechtel. And the story is originally like, you know, it'd take about a day to tell it, but this is just a short version. In the story, there's a raggedy boy, and this raggedy boy, you know, lives in a village, and he's always eating, you know, scraps with the dogs and things like that. And he wants to go out hunting, and he tries to make a bow, you know, but the bow is crooked, and it fires, you know, in the wrong direction. The arrow, he doesn't know how to straighten the arrow, you know, with the fire and that. So the arrow fires in a strange direction. And he's always looking at the hunters in the village, all these great kind of people. He thinks anyway. He looks up at them, the hunters, the older men. He wants to be like that. Wants to be like that. So he goes out hunting with his crooked bow, you know, and he gets kind of lost. He tries to shoot a frog, and the frog just laughs at him because his arrow flies off in a different direction to which he's pointing at the arrow. and he's going off, but then he discovers his ability to sing. He's singing very beautifully. He's singing beautiful songs. And this attracts something. It attracts a being like a deer, a white one. He's following this white deer. And eventually this deer stops. It's very beautiful, the most beautiful thing that he's seen in his life, really. This deer transforms into a goddess with a water skirt. A water skirt. Yeah. And they're falling in love with each other, these two beings, the raggedy boy and the goddess. And she takes him to live in the world of the gods, which is a little bit further next to the mountain. So they're living there together. But the mother of this water-skirted goddess doesn't approve of this match. It's like the mother of the young Baba Yaga in the Slavic story, because it's called Zemun. It's like that. She doesn't approve of the match for some reason. And she always trying to undermine it. So she gets, the little boy to go out with her father, or go out with the goddess's father, which is the mother of the mountain's husband. He's like a mountain god, He's the mountain god who's the father of this water-skirted goddess the raggedy boy is with. So the mountain god takes the young boy out, and they're doing kind of impossible things. Like, for example, this god decides that he's going to burn an area of the forest. He's got to ritually burn an area of the forest. But unfortunately, the young boy's in the middle of the forest as it's getting burned. Luckily, though, and it's pretty clear he's going to get destroyed. This is a kind of a stratagem just to get him out of the way. Get him out of the world of the gods and kind of incinerate him, in fact. But luckily, the goddess has given him, the young goddess has given him an animal skin. He can crawl into it. He crawls into this animal skin, buries himself under the ground, puts a big stone over, and he doesn't get burned. And then, they're all like, why? How did this happen? Is he, what force is helping him? He has to go out another day. This time, the mountain god's causing a landslide. And this time it's going to crush the boy with enormous rocks. But luckily, this young goddess has whispered to the rocks and made friends with the rocks a little bit, and made a little bit of friendship with these rocks. So, because this friendship has been made with these rocks, they don't crush him. This kind of carries on like this for a while. And eventually, the mother of the mountain is getting more and more annoyed with it. And she ends up chasing them out of the village of the gods, the place of the gods. She chases them out. She's chasing them across the landscape in the form of various different animals, hawks, condors, and other animals like that. And the young goddess transforms into a hummingbird at one point to escape. They're trying to escape, and they kind of manage it, but eventually they just get too exhausted. And they collapse onto the ground. They collapse onto the ground. They're too exhausted to go on any further. And also the young goddess has become pregnant by that point. It's becoming pretty clear, after all this running, that she is pregnant, and she can't, for that reason, just continue fleeing across the landscape. So she says, look, to the raggedy boy, look, just go on into the village and get help from the human village. from the human village, because they know that once they get to the human village, they'll be safe. They'll be safe when they get to the human village. Yeah. And she says, go on to the human village. And he's worried because he doesn't want to leave this love of his life pregnant out there on the heathland for obvious reasons. You know, it's a perilous, dangerous situation to find oneself in. And the young goddess says, look, go into the village, but don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. Don't forget about the world of the gods. Okay. And he says, yeah, I won't forget. So he goes on down into the village. He goes down into the village, and yeah, as soon as he walks in, of course, he forgets all his time in the world of the gods. Like all the humans, we're always forgetting all the time and forgetting what's important, what's sacred, you know. And then he lives in the village. He's more of a man now. He's not a boy anymore. He's like a man. And so he can really live. And he has lots of skills that he's learned in the world of the gods. He becomes like an annoying guru, you know, like a really annoying spiritual teacher, like all those spiritual teachers on Facebook. Yeah. And not to knock people on Facebook. You know. I'm always writing on Facebook as well. So I'm one of those annoying ones. But he becomes like that. You know, he forgets about the world of the gods until one night he dreams of her, the goddess, lying out there on the heathland, and he's filled with grief. And he remembers he's filled with grief, such grief, because he's forgotten, you know, his life and the whole point in everything, the whole purpose in everything, and his love of the goddess world. And he goes out there to find her, of course, but all there is her. Is, you know, there's nothing there. There's nothing there, and he even expects to find some bones there, but he can't find those bones there. There's nothing there, except an old man and woman who are pulling this root, trying to get this root out of the ground. And he speaks to the old man and woman, and they're saying, can you help me pull this root out of the ground? And he says, you know, no, listen, where's the goddess? And the woman's saying, well, okay, look, it's not such a good scene because she died here and all her bones were scattered. And also all the animals have taken her bones. And the man's full of grief again. And he's saying, well, what can we do? You know, what can we do to remake that? What can we do? Is there anything that we can do that's can heal this? And the woman says, well, you can go out and court all the animals and listen to them and learn their songs, right? So you learn to the tradition of every animal and the ritual to court every animal and every plant. And once you've done that, they'll return that particular bone that they have of the goddess. And then you can get in the boneyard and repair the goddess. Yeah, get in a boneyard is good advice, I think, for people today as well. So that's what he does. He's going out and he's gathering the bones from every animal and singing and learning their rituals and all this kind of stuff. Becomes really competent in ritual and gets all the bones. And he brings them back. He brings all the bones back. Eventually, and they're checking the bones. The old man, the woman, and him. But it seems like there's two bones missing, namely a toe bone and a tooth. And you say, oh, where's the toe bone and the tooth? And the man says, well, Coyote's got it. Coyote's got it. So he has to go out, this young man, he has to learn all the songs to court Coyote to get this toe bone and tooth. And he does that. He goes out and meets this gigantic coyote and starts singing beautiful songs to him. And Coyote is just like, you know, like, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up. You know, why are you singing these songs to me? And he's saying, you know, well, I want to repair the goddess. I need these bones. Coyote is like, no. What if I repair the goddess? You give me the bones, and then I'll live with the goddess. I'll be married to her. What about that? And the young boy is like, no, 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 don't want that. I want to live with her. She's my loved one, you know. And Coyote says, okay, well, you can choose. You either get to live with the goddess, or I will live with the goddess. I'll get all the bones and remake her, and everything will be good. But if we go the other way, and if I give you the toe bone and tooth, you can go away and live with the goddess. But there is a price for this, and that is that disease and death will enter the world. And the young man thinks about it, and he thinks, oh, well, okay, maybe there's some way to put this right later. And he decides that he's going to go with that. Death and disease will enter the world, but he'll be able to repair the goddess. So he takes the toe bone and the tooth, and he takes it back to the old man and woman who are still trying to pull out this enormous root from the ground. And they're like, can you help? And so he does. He helps them pull out the enormous root from the ground. And pulling this root out of the ground, like the root is full of stars. There's a big hole in the earth. It's very mysterious. And so the young man is like, okay, now we can repair the goddess. We've got all the bits. We've got all the bones, including even the toe bone and the tooth. Yeah. Okay, that happens. They're going to think about repairing her. But there's another problem. The old man is saying, look, there's something else you need to know. You also need a sacred heart. A sacred heart of the goddess in order to do this. And the young man is like, okay, where's the sacred heart? And he's a bit like crestfallen at yet another task. You know? And the old man says, well, it's in the underworld with death. It's in the underworld with death. Fuck. That's not such a good situation. It's in the underworld with death. So he has to go down. He has to go down to the underworld. He has to learn all the songs to court death. Luckily, a portal to the underworld has already been opened by pulling out this big root. And he's able to climb down. And he climbs down because the trees and the plants in our world, when they hang down into the upper world, they're full of stars. Their roots are full of stars. And these stars are the stars that light the sky in this underworld of death, the death world. So he's able to climb down the roots and climb down the stars into the underworld. And on his back, he's got all the bones. And he's got all the songs to court death. And he climbs down. Coyote grabs him as he's going down and says, here are some knuckle bones of jaguars. you can use them to gamble with death, because death likes gambling. Death likes fate and gambling. Very important thing. And he goes down further into the underworld, crossing this dark plane, this immense dark plane, singing his songs to make it across, eventually reaching death. There's these courtly deaths there, courtly beings in the underworld. It's a bit like Orpheus going through the underworld and all those other myths like that. Yeah, so he's going through the underworld. He meets death. There's also all these little deaths around, which are very aggressive little beings, little aggressive deaths, aggressive little deaths. They're more like animals, or something like that, than the more, I suppose, noble deaths he's talking to. And he speaks to them and he asks for the Sacred Heart. He sings all the songs and says all the beautiful words and asks for the Sacred Heart. And death is like, no, I don't want to give you the Sacred Heart. What about if instead you give me all the bones and we'll recreate the goddess here? And the young man is like, no, I can't do that, because then, well, I'll be with her, but we'll be dead in the underworld. And that's not what we want. We want to be alive and bring the world back to life. Yeah. And death is like, no, that's not any good. I don't accept it. So the young man whips out these dice, which are really, the knuckle bones of jaguars. And they gamble. They gamble because death likes gambling. Death can't resist the gamble. And the young boy wins. He rolls them, he wins. So death gives him the Sacred Heart. He has to make his way back. He has to make his way back over the dark plane of the underworld, carrying the bones, carrying the heart, and not look back like Orpheus. So he doesn't look back like Orpheus, but he is attacked by these little deaths. They're difficult to control. And they jump onto him and bite him, and they're dragging him down. So he gets a bone and he throws it. And as soon as he throws a bone, all the little deaths get off him and jump onto that bone instead. And this keeps happening because it's the only way he can get them off him, is he just keeps throwing bones. Keeps throwing bones. Yeah. Which means that he's losing all the bones. Of course. Eventually he staggers up the roots of the trees made of stars, up into the upper world. The old man and woman are there. Yeah, but he's been bitten so much by these little deaths. He's been so wounded that he lies down, he collapses, and he dies. Yeah. Everyone's full of grief. The old man and the woman are full of grief. Everyone's full of grief. Everyone's full of grief. Okay. Even the old man of the mountain, the old god and goddess of the mountain turn up, and they're full of grief as well. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea. The mother of the goddess realizes to have this vendetta against humans. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea after all, because it's so much grief has come of it. So they're all like, what can we do? What can we do to make this right? What can we do? So they decide to make a ritual together. They're making a ritual. The two god and goddess of the mountain, the old man and the woman, and even Coyote turns up. Coyote is doing all these weird things, doing all these weird rituals and saying these words people have never heard for like thousands of years, or 10,000 years, or a million years. These strange words. They throw a blanket down on the floor over the body of the man where he's collapsed. And they don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's going to happen. It seems a really weird long shot. It seems a long shot. Yeah. They notice, Coyote notices that there's in the jacket of the man on the ground while he's putting the blanket over him, he notices there's a toe bone and a tooth of the goddess left. So he thinks, yeah, maybe we can remake the goddess with just this toe bone and tooth. So they're all chanting and dancing and making this ritual. And then something stirs under this blanket. Something stirs. And here rises up the man and the goddess, his partner. And now she's not a goddess. She's just a human, not even just a human, magnificent in her imperfection as a human. A human woman with all the desires, wants, and knowledge of a human woman. And they're reborn. They look at each other and they've completely forgotten all this stuff that's happened to them, except some traces of mythologies that's somewhere deep in their bones. So, and as they look at each other, they also fall in love with each other. Yeah. And that's the story. That's that story. This story reminds me a lot of the story of Thomas the Rhymer as well. Thomas the Rhymer was a guy who was alive. He was a contemporary of Robert the Bruce. He was a person who was said, according to mythologies, to have disappeared into the fairy world. Into the fairy world. According to those ballad traditions. He disappeared into the fairy world. He met the fairy queen. And he went with the fairy queen and he lived with her in the fairy world. And eventually he emerged again, years later. I think 7 years later. And this is a very important story because in this story, it also has a similar moment. This meeting with the goddess, going down into the underworld. And as he's going down into the underworld, he has to cross a river of blood. A river of blood. Many people talk about fairy traditions and, why is it difficult to get into the underworld? And according to this story, anyway, it's because there's a river of blood. And the fairy queen explains that this river of blood comes from all of the pain and nightmare and oppression of history. That's why there's this separation between us and the other world. So in this ritual, that's what we want to, which will start in a minute. Sorry for all the talking. Yeah, in this ritual, we'll try to breach that river of blood to get across to the fairy world. Yeah, that's the idea. And then they go down into the fairy world and there's an apple tree. An apple tree. And just as he's reaching out, Thomas the Rhymer reaches out to get the apple. Here's an apple tree. Reaches out to get the apple. And the fairy queen says, no, don't eat the apple. Don't eat the apple because if you do, this is a dangerous thing. Don't eat the apple because, and he asks why. And the fairy queen says, well, because of the nightmare of history and the river of blood, the blood has dripped down into the underworld and poisoned the fruit of the underworld. And if you eat this apple, it will unleash all the plagues in hell on the world above. So they make a ritual to bless the food and lift the curse from the food. And in lifting that curse, it's lifting the plague and also lifting the curse of the nightmare of history in some way. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to replicate what they do in that story. Blessing the food. A little mouse has just appeared as well. A little wood mouse down there. Might come out again. If it comes out again, I'll show you. So in this ritual, it's very much about listening to feelings and sensations and energies in your body. Listen, when we do it, we can listen to feelings, listen to sensations, listen to energies in your body. Notice if you're looking around and you see a certain beautiful thing, like a beautiful flower or a beautiful a bee, a bumblebee, or lavender, or sunflower. Notice that. Notice the feeling of that, the sensations of that. Notice the energy of that. So all this time when you're doing that, you can just notice what you see, what you feel, what you hear, what you taste, what you smell, what you sense in your body. Tiny body sensations like heat or pulsing or pressure or movement. You can move your body, you can dance if you want to, or just make a small micro inner dance if you want to. Yeah, all those things are available. Following that process, I'll guide you as well. This is the way that we communicate with this more than human world. Even if you're inside in a room, you can do it. I call it the Holobion. Holobion is a word from Lynn Margulis. It means collective organism. If you could think about here, there's oak trees and elder trees and ash trees and sparrows and leaping trout in the river and salmon and lilies and many, many other beautiful beings. And if you could imagine that all these beings had a face of some kind, if all these beings had a face, a collective face, that would be the Holobion, a collective organism. And this Holobion is like a spirit or a god. It's the god of the land or the goddess of the land. Goddesses, fairies. One way to look at all these beings, that they emerge out of the collective intra-relationships in an ecosystem. And for this reason, in listening to them, we can learn things about that ecosystem, how to regenerate it, how to restore water courses, how to plant trees, reforest the land. Sometimes I've guided people in really detailed ways to connect with that landscape through that feeling sense. It's a bit like permaculture where you sit on the land and listen for a year or whatever before you do anything. It's also a bit like it's a bit like things like some indigenous people might have done when they're connecting with all the different plants. Animals all have different stories. Each plant and animal has a different story. Each are interconnected with each other. And if you eat a certain plant and animal at a certain time, you don't eat the You don't, eat the ones that eat them, or you don't eat the ones that are eaten by them. Different tribes also participate in this so as to maintain an ecological balance. All of our dreams, all of our physical sensations, each plant, each animal, each myth being is linked together, interconnected together in that way. That's one way to look at things. And in connecting in that way, we can cross the sensory gap, the sensory biophysical gap that separates myself and a bumblebee. And I can do that by feeling that bumblebee's sense feelings, its sensations in its body, as if they're in my body. Or I can feel the sensations of this little, this lavender plant and this bee. You first have to ask permission. Don't just do it without permission. It's like with a human, you ask consent. The idea of consent is good. If I want to connect with this lavender, I can feel the sensations, the energies. I can feel the shape, the texture, the movements of this lavender, the colors, the plays of light, shade, color, movement in this being, and feel also those in my own body. Feel those shades of those colors, movements, energies in my own body. So it's following those kind of principles. So feel free to do that. Feel free to, when we do this, connect in that way through your physical senses. I'll guide you as well with that a little bit. Also, you could go as deep as you want, or if you don't want to go so deep, that's fine, and that will still be as good an experience. So some people in this group of however many people there are, I don't know, might want to just dip their toe in to the experience, and that's fine. And some people might want to go all in and experience everything, and that's good too. And some people might be really experienced with ritual and sorcery and magic. They might want to do their own thing and bring their own techniques or powers or beauty to it. And that's also good. So you can all bring whatever you want and go in as deep or as not deep or as much as you want. It's entirely up to you what you're bringing to it. It's also very good to be very physically grounded in your body sense, in your feet, in your belly, the lower part of your body when we're doing this. Yeah. So at this time, we have this time where we have all these strange crises going on. And we'll try to connect with the fairy world to see what we can find that might help with that. What might guide you personally forward at this time? What might guide you to connect deeper with the land at this time? What might you be called to do at this time to work with in relationship with the more than human world at this time of climate crisis, pandemic? And what's the next steps for humanity as well? We can ask those questions too. If you need any insight to that, these are all questions you can ask. In some ways it seems as if that when Yeah, there was another time, as well as this time, where many diseases are getting, there's a potential of diseases to get passed from animals to humans. And a lot of people think that's how the COVID-19 virus started. It's passed from animals to humans. This also happened at earlier points in history, in the Neolithic Revolution, where people started farming for the first time. Neolithic Revolution is a Western term. It's not like that everywhere in the world. So I don't want to universalize that as a descriptor of what happened. But in some places, there was that change from either being a hunter-gatherer or being an early gardener. Gardening cultures went on for a long time, thousands and thousands of years in some places, to being one who was keeping livestock. And when we were keeping livestock, more diseases would come because they would be transferred from animals to humans, as is what is happening at the moment because of destructions of ecosystems. More animal diseases are getting passed over. That happened before. At the beginning of what we call Neolithic Revolution. And it's happening again now. It seems, well, that's what it seems. So perhaps it means that this entire agricultural revolution is coming to an end, and something else will happen. Something else will happen. Maybe we'll need to make a less extractive way of relating to the earth. Maybe we'll need to start regenerating landscapes, reforesting landscapes, repairing water courses, planting in such a way that we can master garden bioregions, entire bioregions, and small regions, even small gardens, or empty plots, or whatever. This could be a good time to start doing that. It could be one of the answers, that we're kind of looking for at this time. And we can regenerate landscapes at scale. Of course, there's lots of people who've studied that, and lots of information that you can find out about that. And even viruses themselves have a kind of agency, perhaps. Some people think that viruses de-evolved from, they de-evolved from cellular life. Other people think that they were there for a long time and coexisted with cellular life, or they came about because there were little plasmids which were which contain RNA that we used to transfer from one cell to another, and those evolved into viroid life, or virons, or viruses. So in some sense, the virus is kind of like an outcast from the cellular life. Perhaps it's been longing for millennia to get back into cellular life, like a person longing for the goddess. It's an outcast like Baba Yaga in the story, or like the goddess in the story that wants to get back in. So in this ritual, how can we get an outcome that's good for humans, it's good for viruses, and it's good for the more than human world? We don't want an outcome that's just good. Well, I would suggest anyway, I don't want to pin it down totally. I would suggest that, it's not an outcome that's only good for the viruses and humans get wiped out and other species get wiped out, but it's an outcome that's good for everything. And it's not an outcome that's just good for humans and humans win and conquer. That's the old paradigm, of course. But also, humans have a place as fair gardeners of the earth. As anybody who's ever lived with indigenous people or studied those cultures or connected with their own ancestors, even if you come from non-indigenous culture, like most people in most what we call white people do, apart from some European cultures who are indigenous. If we want to find our place as human beings, fair gardeners of the earth. How do we find that place as fair gardeners of the earth and as stewards of ecosystems? These are just some questions that I want to float there. And none of them are absolutes. None of them are absolutes. They're not spiritual teachings. They're not, so take what you can, what you want from them, and ignore the bits you don't connect with. Yeah. Okay, so let's start to make the ritual itself. So to do that, first thing you need to make is, if you brought the things that you need a fire. So if you have a candle burning, that's good. If you have a physical fire, that's good. Yeah, a physical fire, that's even better. That represents the need fire. If you don't have a candle, you don't have a physical fire, that's okay as well, because what we like to do is create a kind of a fire that exists in this virtual space between us. A fire that exists in this virtual space between us. Yeah. So a fire. Then we have our offerings. And then just to make an equal armed cross. An equal armed cross on the ground. You can make it with 4 sticks or wands. So see if you can make that now if you haven't already made it. Yeah, just make an equal armed cross on the ground. Yeah, I'll show you my one as well. I'll show you my one. Here it is. Here it is. I'll just lift it up, hopefully you can see. So it's just an equal armed cross on the ground. And there's various other objects around. So if you make it in such a way that you're on one side of it, obviously I'm on one side of that cross. And then the other side, the opposite side, is some objects that represent the other world or the fairy world. As you can see here, there's a whole bunch of objects there. There's a bow, making fire, and there's a rook feather and a swan feather and a crystal and a lion and a mammoth tusk. A mammoth tusk. So just place on the opposite side objects that represent the other world. And if you want, you can orientate this entire thing in such a way that it's pointed towards what you feel is the other world. Like if there's a particular place in your landscape that's really otherworldly, like a tree that grows there, or a direction, maybe you feel in the north is otherworldly, maybe that's pointing towards Dartmoor, or pointing towards some magical place. Point that end towards that place and point the other end towards you. In a minute, I'll people can ask questions. Yeah, equal armed cross. And then on the west side is water. A little bowl of water. Little bowl of water. Here's a little bowl of water. I'll show you again. On the opposite side is fire. or something that represents fire. Not the same fire necessarily that's using for the need fire, or it can be the same one if you want. That's okay. But you can have something represent fire, either the physical fire, or it can be a crystal, or it can be a candle, or something that represents fire if you don't have physical fire, or a candle that goes on the other side. In summary, in the north lives the other world. In the south is you. They don't need to correspond to the actual directions. In the west or in the left side is water, and the other side is fire. The important thing is that, yeah, the fire and water and the other world. Okay, good. And now, make a little triangle with 3 sticks. A little triangle with 3 sticks, and place within the triangle some offerings. I'm going to place in there bread and wine, because this is what they use in Ballad of Thomas the Rhymer. They're having bread and wine and blessing that. So you place that within the triangle. There should be some other food offerings which are left separate and not placed in that triangle. You can place whatever you want in there. It could be, it could be nut. If you haven't got bread, nuts, or whatever it is you want to put there. If you haven't got wine, fruit juice, elderberry juice, apple juice, whatever. Elderflower cordial, honey. But also leave some offerings on one side and place some in there. If you've got bread and wine, though, place it in the triangle. Yeah, good. Some people will know this because they've done it with me before, or they've done it with someone else similarly. So I'll show you again. Here's the place. Here's the cross. There's some offerings here next to me, south side. Here's a triangle. Doesn't matter where you put that. Put that where you want. But maybe near you. Yeah. These are offerings as well. This is honey water and elderflower cordial in there. Good. Good. So, has everybody got an idea of that? Any questions quickly? Put them in the chat.
Or we could do a couple of live ones if anyone's unclear on anything.
Anybody want to ask any questions? Yeah, live ones if you want.
And it would be lovely to see if, after the ceremony, if anyone wants to share photos of their process, that would also be lovely. But yeah, okay, I don't see any questions. Is everyone clear on? Cindy, do you see anyone? Okay, I think
no questions have appeared.
Oh, I think everyone's interested in your process and just
pretty
following that.
Simple, really. thing to do. So good. Yeah. So first thing is get a little bit of water. So this is to open up the way to the fairy world, which is represented on the other side, obviously. Get a little bit of water from the water container, trickle a little bit of water from the water side to the fire side. Trickle it across. Just trickle a little bit of water across. Yeah. And as you do so, you can visualize or imagine or feel a little bit of the energy of the water becoming fire. A little bit of the energy of the water becoming fire. Maybe the fire becomes like fire water. And next, a little bit of the energy of fire comes across to water. So trickle a little bit of water from fire to water, the opposite way across. And visualize or feel a little bit of fire coming across the water. Maybe it changes the color of the water, makes it like fire water or something like that. Yeah, like that. And then trickle a little bit of water from your side to the other world side. Yeah. These are just ways to open up this little portal. So also in this, we'll say a word. And the word is acromacamere. I wrote that word down in the instructions, acromacamere. So you can practice saying it if you want. Yeah, it's a magical word to lift curses. So when I tell you to say the word, then say the word. Doesn't matter if you don't say it exactly right. So first, let's give some offerings to the Lord and Lady of the harvest. Great are the old ones, Lord and Lady of the harvest, who gives us the tools to fertilize the land. Yeah. Let's ask for health, prosperity, and whatever else we need. Feel free now to ask for that. Ask for health, prosperity, anything that you need for this cycle of time that's coming. Do that now if you wish to. And as you're doing so, make an offering. Pass the offering from your side to the fairy world side. So for example, I'll give these onions, some onions that came out of the ground today. These onions were picked today. I'll pass them over to the other side. Here they go. Also, I'm going to pass over this bowl of blueberries and strawberries and flowers over to the other side. Yeah, so passing those offerings over. And as the nights grow longer, may the fairy king and queen and the god and goddess in the land grant us health, prosperity, well-being, May we come into deeper relationship with the earth-based myth beings. The hidden god and goddess in the seeds. The seeds that are now coming from the plants will drop into the earth, and like the plants will grow again in the spring. So now we can see days will begin to get shorter, but also we know that we have the magical powers to call forth light again later in the year. This time we can foresee all of it, and foresee the shortening of the year and the lengthening later and the coming back to life later. So in making these offerings, we're just making the promise to honor this indestructible life which dies and is reborn. Perhaps we'll be like that as well. You know, we'll also, a little part of the small self of us sometimes dies, not in a dramatic way necessarily, just in an everyday way perhaps, and then is reborn in a way. Yeah. Also, if you have a garden tool at this point, then just pour a little bit of fruit juice or elderberry cordial or whatever offering you're giving onto that tool. So I've got here some cordial. I'm going to pass it over, pour it upon this hoe that I got here. Blessing this instrument of the harvest. And I'll leave that on this side too. Yeah, good. Now let's open the way to the fairy world. So may we open the way to the fairy world, to the other world, Annwyn. May we travel below the Alpha Lock, below the Greenwood Spray. May we pass down below. May those good neighbors not harm us nor wish us ill, and maybe there peace between us and the more than human world. May there be peace between us and the more than human world. Adona Sabat, Adona Kados, Adona Amora. Please take our gifts and offerings swiftly away to the ones we wish to meet. Now you can pass any other offerings you have over to the other side, apart from the ones in the triangle. I'll just pass over this time some apple across. These apples picked today, across to the other side, to the fairy world side. And now, let us, like Thomas the Rhymer and the Fairy Queen, lift the curse from the food. So the food that's in the triangle, which can be wine or bread or whatever else is in the triangle, come over that food now and place your hands above it in a triangle, kind of mimicking the triangle that's on the ground. Yeah. So now we place your hands over the food in the triangle. Now we sain this bread, this drink, in the name of the Fairy King. May red become white. May we break the curse of the nightmare of history and cross the river of blood to the fairy world. Acromacamere. Now also you say that word, acromacamerate. Now place your hands palm up. No, palm down, sorry. Palm down over the bread and drink. We bless this bread and drink in the name of the Fairy Queen. This is nourishing increase of her body. May plagues be lifted from this land. May we come once again into a relationship with the earth-based myth beings, the Fairy King and Queen, the sun, the moon, the bumblebees, the flowers, the oak trees, the leaping salmon, the foxes and badgers, and the star-strewn sky and the constellations and the rocks and everything else. May we come into a relationship. May the curse be lifted from this food, and the curse be lifted from the land. May plagues be lifted from the land. Acromacamerate. Yeah. And now you can drink a little bit of the drink if you wish to. Eat and drink and leave some over. Leave some over for the spirits in the land. Once you've taken a sip from that drink, just pass it over to the other side of the cross, as you did before. Pass it over to the other side. Take a little bit of the food, eat a little bit. This is homemade bread, very nice. And then pass the food over as well as an offering. And now in yourself, feel in yourself, in your own body, feel your feet on the ground. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your legs as they're resting on the ground, if you're sitting or lying or whatever it is. Feel your spine as it moves. Your lower spine. Feel all the lower part of your body, all the sensations that are there. Feel that a little bit. Feel any sensations or energies that are in your body. And then feel your whole body sense. Hear the sounds that are around you. Smell the air. Taste the air. Feel the weight of your body on the ground. Feel all of your sensations, feeling, sensing your interoceptive sense and your outeroceptive sense. That means your inner sense feeling and your outer senses, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, sensing. In your body, outside your body, as a whole field of sensation. Just looking around at the things around you, gently casting your eyes around. If there's anything that looks beautiful or attracts you, just feel into that. Maybe it's a lavender plant, maybe it's a painting or a rock. Just feel into that. Feel a little bit of that energy of that, the sensations of that in your own body. Just looking around at all these things around. Feel a little bit of that in your own body. Something beautiful. And sense into your own feeling sense. Sense into your own feeling sense. Scan your own body. Find a part of yourself that connects with the other world, the fairy world. Find a part of your body that connects with the other world, of the fairy world. What part of your body is most connected? Maybe it's your belly. Maybe it's your feet. Maybe it's your chest. Maybe it's your nose. I don't know. Find that part of your body and sense into that part of your body. Sense into the energy that's there. Sense into the sensations that are there. Pressure, pulsing, heat, pleasure. If there's pleasure there, allow a bit more. Feel into that. You don't have to just focus narrowly on that. You can open up to the whole body too, but notice that part. As you do, notice around you a sphere of protection. Maybe that sphere of protection is made of thousands and thousands and thousands of little protection symbols. If you have any myth beings or fetch beings or familiars or beings like that that help you, maybe animals or plants or gods or deities, spirit beings, as people say, call those beings in to help you now. Let those beings be with you. And then, if there's any ancestors that want to come here, but not just any ancestors, ancient ancestors, ancestors who are deeply connected with the earth, deeply connected with the land. In all of your ancestry, there were ancestors who were deeply connected with the land. Maybe it was 1,000 years ago, maybe 10,000 years ago. Just feel a little bit of those ancient ancestors come to you now, be present with you now. Receive a little gift from those ancient ancestors. Doesn't matter if it's not clear. They can arrive as an energy or as a feeling, an emotion or a sensation, or maybe a little tiny change in your posture or your energy. All of that is important. Maybe it's subtle. Receive any gifts you need from those ancestors. Ancient ancestors, only ancient ones, not modern ones, for this purposes of this particular experience. Feel and experience any gifts from those ancestors. And then again, feel into that part of yourself that's like the fairy world, the other world, a part of your body that most resembles that. Feel the sensations that are there, the energies that are there. Go a little bit deeper into it so you can feel the essence that's under it. Not just the sensation, but the almost before it even became a sensation. What was the energy that was there before? Or the essence? Feel into that. And allow that to set your body in motion. Make a little movement of your body. Maybe it's a little rippling movement of your body. Feel into that movement that goes with the fairy world and with that energy in your body. Then slow it down so it's almost at the edge of movement and sensation. And then, if you wish to, you don't have to, but if you wish to, just move a little bit further into the other world. Move a little bit further into the other world. If you wish, you can physically cross the little cross or X that's on the ground to where the offerings are, if you wish to. Physically with your body by moving, or you can just imagine, just feel into it. Let yourself enter that other world a little bit in your inner vision. In your inner vision. Be aware of your sensations, feelings, energies in your body. Come over to that other world a little bit, and then you'll see an animal. You may well be accompanied by any other animals or familiars or spirit guides or whatever you want to call them. But you'll see another animal that will guide you. Maybe it's a hare. Maybe it's a deer or a white deer, like in the story. Some other animal, or a fox. Maybe it's not even an animal. Maybe it's a humanoid or something else. But you'll see some being and just follow that being a little bit. Follow that being and see what happens when you follow them a little bit further into the fairy world. Perhaps you'll go into a forest, or perhaps you'll cross a mound on the earth. To see what happens. Perhaps you'll walk onto the moorland, or just a little bit, only as far as you want to. You don't have to go, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You're in control of the process all the time. You can always come back anytime. But if you want to, you're invited. Have a look around at this land and feel into this land. Your inner vision. And connect with any beings that are there. Maybe there's some being that you need to meet there. Maybe it's the fairy king and queen. Or maybe it's some fairy or pixie. Or maybe it's a god or goddess. Maybe it's some being from your own ancestral tradition, your own spiritual tradition or religious tradition or whatever it is that you follow. Maybe it's an animal, maybe it's a mountain, but some being that you need to find and connect with in this place. See if you can find them. If you're not sure, just follow the animal or follow one of your helping beings or helping deities. And connect with that being. Connect with that being. If you want, you can give them another offering. You just visualize an offering in your inner vision. Give it to them. Yeah. And you can ask them anything that you need to. If you have any questions, I can ask them. And if you need to receive any blessing or healing from this being, allow that to happen now. Just receive any blessing or healing from that being. Yeah, good. And then when you're ready, travel a little bit further across that land, guided in whatever way you need to be by whatever animal or being. And come to a place where there's a fire, an immense fire. Come to a place where there's a fire. This is our collective fire in the spirit world. It's also a safe place in the spirit world, in the other world. We need fire. And as you come closer to that fire, also, you can come physically closer in your body. Move your body a little bit closer if you wish to the actual fire that's near you. You know, if it's a fireplace, if it's an open fire, if it's a candle, you can come a little bit closer to that fire if you wish to. In the same way that you come into this, closer to this fire in your inner vision. And perhaps you can see all the other people here gathered around this fire as well. Or maybe not, I don't know. Maybe there's other humans and other ancestors or fairies gathered around this fire. Come close to this fire. As you come close to this fire, there's going to be two things that I'm going to ask you to do. And I'll tell you what they are first, before. And the first is that you're going to ask for something. And this is the need fire. So you can ask for plagues to be lifted if you wish. Or if there's something else you want to ask for yourself or humanity, then you can do so. Or for the more than human world, or even better, for everything together. How can you come into relationship with those beings and create beauty on this earth and transform the catastrophe into beauty? Transform the catastrophe into beauty. And then the second thing you're going to need to do, which I'm going to ask you to do in a minute, is going to make a promise to the fire that you'll do something for the fire too. So first thing is come close to the fire and ask for what you need. Don't be afraid to ask for it. It's okay to ask for things. It's okay to ask for the things that are good for your people. That's okay. That's not an insult. If you live a life of giving back as well, it's okay to ask for things that you need. It's okay to ask for plagues to be lifted from the land, or from, for a better day to come. What is it for you to step into service to earth-based community in its most beautiful form, its strongest, most robust, ferocious, wild form as well? What's it like to ask to transform this catastrophe into something magical? Now, we have lit the beacon fire. We have come. May the spirits, the benevolent and helpful spirits, king and queen, fairy, and any other beings, see us. We ask to drive any power of sickness from the land, and ask here also whatever else you need. May strength and peace come to us. Ancient fire, will you be friendly to me? Bring my petition to the powers. Bring my words to the powers above and below. So, an ancient phrase associated with the need fire, this is a really real phrase that was associated and used with the traditions. Trouble is oppressive to the heart, yet it provides a source of salvation for humans who hear it and respond in time. Thanks to Daniel 4 for telling me that. He told me that. Trouble is oppressive to the heart, yet often provides a source of salvation for humans who hear it and respond on time. How can we shift fate in such a way that uprisings will bring beauty, well-being, abundance to the human and more human world? That we can recreate Earth community. Yes, some things will be destroyed maybe, but also some things will be created. Some things will be generated. Feel into that. Feel into how you can reweave fate for yourself and for all beings. How can you bend fate, change fate to create an abundant earth-based culture on the earth? How can you bend fate to bring well-being to your people? How can you join with the more than human world at this time of troubles? And now the next part, the last part. Promise to the fire what you will give to it. Traditionally, perhaps you would create a small pile of stones, a cairn of stones. One traditional thing is to create, 9 stones, 3 stones piled on top of each other, 3 stones piled on top of each other, and another 3 stones piled on top of each other. Pour milk onto them. Not now, but a promise. But you can promise whatever you want. Promise what you will give. And maybe the fire likes to hear is, what are you gonna give? What offerings are you gonna give back? Maybe you will go out into the land and pour offerings onto the land. If so, promise that now. Don't have to do it now, do it tomorrow, do it next week, whenever you want. Or do it whenever what you've asked for has been fulfilled. So promise to give whatever you wish to give. Maybe it's to help a homeless person. Maybe it's to go and pour some milk or soya milk out onto the land as a libation. Maybe it's to sing the praises of the deities of your people or the beings that you've met today. Because, yeah, maybe they want to, they would like you to sing their praises. And especially if the need fire fulfills for you what you want, then it might be good to sing their praises. So make that promise if you wish to. Only make the promise that you want to make. Don't make one that you don't want to make, or you don't overpromise. Can be something very simple, incredibly simple. So make that promise to the fire. That's the thing to do now. Yeah, good. And now when you're ready, slowly draw back from the fire. Slowly draw back from the fire. And follow the little being, the white deer or hare or whatever it was that you followed. Follow it back the other way, back the other way. Follow it back past, whatever you passed before, forest or moorland or whatever it was in your inner vision. Just come back. And if you wish, you can move physically further away from the physical fire in your presence. And you can move physically, further back to your side of that little cross on the ground, the human side, rather than the fairy world side. Come back to your side. Feel in your body, your feet on the ground, your hips, your lower spine. Hear the sounds around you. Smell, taste the air, see the sights, sense inside your body sensations. Come fully back into the human world, which also includes, of course, the more than human world as well. It's not like it's another place, but fully back into your body senses, all your body senses together, including your lower body and your belly. Feel that. Come back to that. Come back to that fully. Any animals or helping powers or helping ancestors around you. A little sphere of energy around you, protecting you. Yeah. Come back. Yeah. Okay, now we're approaching the end. So I'm giving thanks. Give thanks to the fairy king and queen. Give thanks to any fairy beings and ancestors and animals and plants and myth beings and bumblebees and oak trees and apple trees and all the other beings that have been here with us. Please, yourself now, give thanks out loud if you want to any beings that you want to. May plagues be lifted. May we create abundant earth-based community and regenerate landscapes. Make beautiful ritual and song and ceremony and dance and conflict resolution and organizational change and mutualistic businesses and all these other things that we need to do right now, that we're called to do this time in history. May that now happen. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this little gathering. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get in contact with me, you can do. Send me a message on Facebook or an email or something like that. If you want, if there's anything you need to follow up, or if you have any questions or anything like that, or if there's anything you might need. Also, I'm a coach and facilitator as well. If you need any coaching or anything like that, but you don't have to do coaching. If you just want to follow up from this, no money is involved. If you just want to ask a question or anything like that, please do so. Yeah, or check anything out, or ask any questions. I give thanks as well to all my teachers and the people who've influenced this, people who've studied the fairy tradition, like Nigel Jackson and R.J. Stewart, Robin Artisan, he's another one who made that, designed that. He brought the attention to that equal arm cross charm. Give thanks to Praptu Suradama, my teacher, and all my other teachers. Yeah, process work teachers, embodiment teachers, and ritual teachers, and everybody else. Thanks to all of those beings. Thanks to everybody who's here in this little gathering, and thanks to Embercombe as well, a very magical place in Devon with a lake and a forest and a garden. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jason. I loved what you said about may we create this abundant earth community that we're all longing for.
Yeah.
yeah, that wonderful stream of gratitude to end off your ceremony. Thank you. And thank you to everyone for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed all of our free online offerings over the last very challenging few months. We hope to see you on the land soon. We're opening up for a few venue hires now in August, and our programs are starting in September. And hopefully you can join us, Jason, on the land and do your earth-based work with us. So thank you so much.
Oh yeah, hopefully we'll make a course there, with Imaginal Futures.
Well, we're neighbors, so we're all in Devon, so you must all come to Devon. So thank you. There's lovely stream of thank yous in the chat for you, Jason. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, okay. I haven't looked at the chat actually.
Oh well, if anyone is called to thank Jason, we can do that live as well if anyone would like to, or if you're all in your own space at the moment after the ceremony, that's also fine. I don't see any hands.
Thank you to everyone. That's great. Good to be here. Good to connect with Embercombe.
Cindy, can you unmute everyone and
Very
we can
magical.
do the last final
thank you
and goodbye online. If anyone wants to just do a communal thank you. Is that possible, Cindy? I don't know.
Yeah, there we are.
Oh, yeah, people are saying, let's just say a wonderful thank you. And
thank you. Thank you from Texas.
Oh, wow.
Texas, wow.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jason.
Nice to meet you all.
See you. Bye for now. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Blessings on you all.
Little wood mouse is here. Little wood mouse living down there. Gnomes, apple tree, lavender tree, gigantic sunflower, 7-foot tall. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Take care. And all the best.